Hello everybody, this is Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools, and I want to welcome you back to another webinar. And this time we're going to be looking at the new SharePoint Framework version of the Lightning Conductor web part. And if you're not familiar with the Lightning Conductor web part, then basically it's a content aggregation tool that can be used to roll up SharePoint list content from across multiple site collections. That's what it's basically done in its format since 2007. So back then we were working with obviously tools such as Moss and being able to aggregate across site collections then. And we'll have a look at how the product's evolved to where we are today, which is the, like I said, the SharePoint Framework version with the client-side web part. So those of you who don't know me, my name is Brett Lonsdale. I'm a Microsoft SharePoint MVP, and over the past few years, I've spent about a third of my life doing SharePoint, and some of that is around business connectivity services, obviously content aggregation as well, and also as a host on a pod show called Techsplaining. Formerly, I was a host on another pod show called which is a SharePoint pod show. So the SharePoint pod show. So a little bit about Lightning Tools. We are a company that purely specializes in Microsoft SharePoint. So we have a variety of different products, content aggregation obviously being one of them, but we also work in other areas as well, such as permissions management for the business user inside of SharePoint Online and also SharePoint On-Prem. We also have data visualization tools such as charting and data viewer. And in fact, tomorrow we'll be having a look at the brand new data viewer component as well for SharePoint Online, which is the SPFx version of that. And we also have a discussion forum tool called Social Squared, and our latest product is Lightning Forms, which is a tool that can be used to add logic and change the layout of the existing SharePoint list forms that you have. And there was a webinar on that last week. If you missed it, that is available on lightningtools.com. You can go and click onto webcasts and see the recording from that one. We basically provide a number of different SharePoint tools that are innovative, simple to use, they perform well, and they're also backed by outstanding customer service and knowledgeable staff as well, not just around the products, but also around the SharePoint platform itself. So a little bit of history, first of all. What I want to just talk about briefly is the history of the Lightning Conductor. And like I say, this dates all the way back to 2007. In fact, that was at the start of Lightning Tools, and before Lightning Tools was created, I was teaching SharePoint development classes for a company called Combined Knowledge here in the UK, and one of the parts of that class was talking about the best practices of having different site collections to help with permissions management and things like that. So the fact that we had less SharePoint groups to worry about and easy to manage permission inheritance and so on. One of the students put their hands up and said, but one of the problems is you can't aggregate content. The content query web part back then wasn't able to roll up across the different site collections. Which was true. So that's what led to the launch of the Lightning Conductor. It was born as a product that could roll up across site collections inside SharePoint 2007, and also you could easily build views. So you could go through and select which columns you want to display within your view, and add things like conditional formatting and things like that. So that was way back then. So we were able to offer a roll-up tool for that need, and it evolved through SharePoint 2010 into 2013, and in 2014 we launched it as a app, which was for SharePoint Online. So you could also aggregate cross-site collections using an add-in, and obviously, we launched the 2016 version, and here we are today, talking about the SPFx client-side web part for SharePoint Online, and also SharePoint 2019 or later releases of SharePoint 2016 as well. So that's kind of the history of the product. And if we look at why we created that tool, so back in 2007, like I said, there was only the content query web part was the only rollup tool. You had to have the enterprise version. You had to have the enterprise license. If you used Windows SharePoint Services, as it was called back then, or SharePoint Server Standard, you couldn't aggregate across even a single site collection across sites. So that was an issue, and also you had to heavily customize some XSLT in order to build some views. So back in 2010, there was the content by search web part that was launched. That used search to aggregate across site collections, and you could build display templates, which was basically something that you could do using SharePoint Designer back then, and that would allow you to display multiple columns, but you had to effectively hard code it. And then in 2018, what we have now is the content highlighter, which can be used in SharePoint Online to aggregate across site collections. It can also be used to aggregate with the new hub sites and associated sites, but it's not possible to customize the views at all. And that's what I want to sort of start off by looking at, and then how we can contrast that with the Lightning Conductor of today. So before we do, just a quick one about what the Lightning Conductor does for you. So it's two real simple things. One is you can aggregate contents in real time from different lists. So it's not purely depending on search. If you're familiar with the SharePoint Addin and you've been using that to aggregate across site collections, you had to use search to go across site collections, but now you don't. Using the SharePoint Framework version, we can aggregate content in real time across site collections, and it performs well. You can also use search if you want to. And a little bit later on this year, we're already getting ready to release the graph rollup provider, which allows you to not just get content from SharePoint lists and libraries, but you can also get content from the likes of Teams and OneDrive and Outlook and anything that uses graph, essentially. We also empower users to build the design of how they want to view the content. So we allow them to select which columns they want to see, what order they want those columns to be displayed in, how they want to group their content, do they want to add calculated columns, and so on. So you as a site owner or somebody with design permissions can build a view of the content for your team so that they can see the content that's important to them. And that's a real time saver. It means that you're not having to navigate from site to site to see if any tasks are assigned to you or if there's any documents that need your attention or anything like that. You can basically log onto a SharePoint site and see this aggregated content in one place with things like the conditional formatting highlighting that content that is important to you. So that's what the Lightning Conductor is all about. So yeah, to summarize, it's simple to use. It's there to support the classic and also modern sites. It works with the new modern team sites, so hub sites and associated sites. You can be flexible with your views so that they can be customized by the end user as well. And it also provides the real-time cross-site collection aggregation. So that's really important. I just want to stress that point as well. So one of the issues, of course, using search is if somebody goes through and updates maybe one of their tasks, they change it from in progress to completed. You may not see that update using another tool that's relying on search. So with the API support that we provide, you will see that real-time update as the content changes inside your SharePoint environment. Like I say, if you want to use search, you can, and also it will soon be able to work with graph as well. And also we've got some brand new views in here, so the calendar view and also the tile view. So with that said, let's go and have a look at the product. So what I'm going to do here is just first of all show you a couple of the limitations, like I said, of the content highlighter. So here inside a modern SharePoint site, the new way of adding a web part is to click onto the plus icon inside the modern page, and you'll notice one of the featured web parts that you have is this highlighted content. So this is effectively Microsoft's new answer. It's evolved from what we had as the content by search or the content query web part to aggregate content. And it jumps straight into this view that doesn't require any configuration at all. So it's already showing me some previews of documents. So you've got this nice tiled view. But in order to customize that, when we click onto the Edit Web Part link, you'll see that you can very easily change the source of where your content is coming from. So there's all the sites in the hub, which is the new modern hub and associated sites. And then you've also got the type of content. So in here we can choose things like tasks and documents and events and so on. So if I switch this to tasks, you can now see that the tile view has changed to represent my tasks, and it gives me the ability to filter, sort, and also change the layout. And this is what I want to sort of point out to you, that the layout, here you've got the cards, or you've got a list view or a carousel and so on, but these can't be customized. So let's just get into the real world for a moment, rather than looking at these sort of dummy tasks that I've created. We're going to want to see more than just the task title and who it's modified by and when it was modified. We're going to want to see the start date, the end date, the duration, who it's assigned to, maybe a description and so on. But you can't do that with the highlighted content. It's set in stone. You have to use it as is. It's not even like the content query or the content by search, where you could write some code to customize it. You just can't customize it. It's you take it or leave it as it is here. So even with a document library, if we go up to documents and choose the cards, I've got things like the title, the preview, which is nice, who the last modifier was again, and that sort of thing. But I can't see perhaps some custom columns that I've created, or custom site column information. So that's the new content aggregation for modern Office 365. I'm just going to remove that and jump into the Lightning Conductor. So on the Lightning Conductor, we've got two modes in order to configure it. You've got, as we click on to configure, we can basically choose a quick configuration mode, or we can jump into the advanced mode. And similar to the highlighted content, we've really tried to focus on getting some results quickly. So what you can do is, first of all, select the content that you want to see. So yep, there's support for documents, tasks, events, announcements, or other. So if I was to select tasks as an example, we're then prompted as to how we might want to refine those tasks. So do we want to show all of the tasks within the scope that I'll select in a moment, or do I just want to see tasks that are focused on me? So any tasks assigned to me, me being the current user, or do I want to show my overdue tasks? So there's just a few different types of refinement that you can set using the Lightning Conductor there. And then we can concentrate where we want that content to come from. So current site, we've also got the current site and subsites if we're working with a sort of traditional site collection. We've also got the current site collection, the current site and associated sites. That's the new hub and associated sites. We've even got the current tenant, or we've also got a couple here that are using search. So current site using search, or current tenant using search. The others are going to be real-time content. So I'm going to choose this option here, the current site and associated sites. And it then allows me to choose whether I want to have the grid view or the calendar view in this case. And that will vary depending on the type of list that we're connecting to. So I'm going to go with the grid view option first of all and hit save. And we'll get our content back, which, as you can see, is already on the page here. So we've got some tasks coming from the hub site itself. I've also got some sales tasks coming from my associated sales site, and I've also got some marketing tasks coming from this marketing site. And they are actually in different site collections, if you like. There's really no such thing as a site collection with modern sites. They are actually separate sites that are associated with each other. So in here we've got obviously some columns already added for us. So we see some useful information. We've got the task name, who it's assigned to, the task status, the priority, and so on. So we've tried to take the sort of information that most of our users say that they want to see when they're looking at tasks. Now, a couple of other things we can do is also get some data visualization going on in here. So if we take the priority column as an example, we've got the normal, high, there is no low, in fact there's just normal and high priority tasks in there. And the high priority tasks aren't really jumping out and making me notice them. So what I can do is click the drop down here and come down to the column settings and go down to the formatting. And if you've already been working with modern sites or modern lists in SharePoint, you'll know that you can now do column formatting through JSON. And this is very much the same thing, apart from you don't need to write the JSON code. You can just simply go through and configure everything here inside the dialog. So what we can do for the priority column is add a bit conditional formatting. If you're familiar with the Lightning Conductor Addin or even the Full Trust WSP for SharePoint on premises, then you'll know that we've always been able to set a forecolor or background color based on a condition. So we still have that feature there. But what we can also do is go through and change font alignment, font attributes, and also we can go through and set icons. And there's a large number of icons that you can choose from. We've got cars and all sorts of things in here that you can select. And what I'm going to work with is just simply a nice sort of KPI icon here, or the pepper pot icon as it's sometimes called. So once I've selected that, I can also go through and change the color of it. So I'm going to change the forecolor to be bright red. We only want to see the icon. I don't necessarily want to see the value as well. If I did want to see the value, then I can actually have the icon just display in the top left-hand corner of the cell or the top right-hand corner, or also position it left or right of the actual value. But I'm just going to switch to just the icon only and have that display. So we've got a red icon, and I'll set it red if it's a high priority task. That will jump out and draw my attention to it. I can also add some additional formatting. So what we'll do here is change the icon to a green icon. So in here again, I could change the forecolor and so on. So we'll choose maybe a darker green on the white background and set that to, again, just show the icon. And this time we'll set that to the normal priority. I'm just going to choose normal rather than low because there is no low in my results. So when I hit save, you can see that icon has already been set. So we've got some nice conditional formatting there. You could have done that in the Addin version or in the WSP, but it would require creating a calculated column with some code. Now it's something that an end user can do just simply by going through and configuring the formatting there. So we've also got the percentage complete column, and you can see again that's not really jumping out at me. I have to really focus on the content there. So what we can do here is click the drop down, come down to the column settings, and under formatting I can go through and actually get rid of the condition. I don't need to have a condition, but I can work with data bars. So the percentage complete has a range of 0 through to 1 as it's a decimal. So I'm going to set this to 1 as being the maximum value. And the color blue for the data bar is actually being detected from the theme applied to the site, which I'll show you in just a moment. If I want to hard code a different color, then I can do that. I can also have a gradient. So if I wanted it to sort of blend from green to the blue, then we can do that and see a gradient color. But if I just clear that on both, then it's going to detect that from the theme that's applied. And again, we can show or hide the value, and we can hard code the height if we want to as well. So if we just save that, you can now see that we've got this data bar being displayed, so we can see how complete some of these tasks are that are being aggregated from my SharePoint lists. So some nice conditional formatting that you can apply. Again, you could do the fore color and the background color and apply that to the entire row or just to the cell, also as we always have done. Now, you also don't need to go into the configuration dialog to go through and change things like the columns that are displayed. I can do that from this simple mode. We can just hit the drop down here, go down to the column settings, and we can show an additional column. So if I wanted to also show something like who this was created by, so who assigned me this task, I can display the created by column, and we have that. And then I can also move that around as well. So if I wanted to move that column to the left, we can do that as well. So you can design the view actually within inside the grid view. So there's no surprises once you've exited the configuration dialog on what you're going to get. You can work on your results straight from here. So you can show hide columns. You can also apply grouping. So if we wanted to group by maybe the task status, we can go down and group by that. So that will just take a moment. Now we've got our grouping set, so I can see the completed tasks, the in progress tasks, and the not started tasks all grouped together nicely. And you can apply multiple levels of grouping, of course, as you always have been able to do. And we can see there that this task status is the grouped column, hence the little icon on that task status at the top there. Of course, we can sort, we can filter, and we can also do the advanced filters from here. So the advanced filters allow us to basically go through and filter across columns, and you can branch them and so on. So if we wanted to show all of the important tasks, then what I could do is set the priority to high, and we could also set the due date equal to today. So we can set that by default, and that's going to give us all the tasks that, of course, are high priority or have to be done today as a result there. Okay, so that's some of the things that we can do actually here with inside the grid. We can, as we always have been able to, also add multiple views inside the same web part instance. So notice this view here is actually called default at the moment. So I'm just going to change that to all tasks. And what we can then do is click this plus icon, and that gives me another view that we could maybe go through and change to be my tasks or something like that. And again, click onto the configuration icon, and we can very quickly get a variation of this. So I'll choose my tasks coming from the current site and associated sites, hit save, and that's now a separate view. So we can load the my tasks view, of which there aren't any, and then switch back to the all tasks view again. So you can build as many of those views as you like. So you're taking up less space on the page and adding some sort of dynamic content. So also, if you want to just change your view slightly, maybe changing a filter or changing how it's grouped or something like that, what we can also do is clone an existing view. So to the right of all tasks, I can click this clone view option. So that's given me another instance of that, and we can go through and change its name. So we could have all tasks by priority, and that would be another view created then. So here we have the all tasks by priority. Of course, it's going to be exactly the same, but I could go through and change that ever so slightly. So there's just the different views that can be loaded there. Okay, so that's working with some of the sort of simple configuration, and I'll just show you also if we were to work with something like documents, then I can choose things like all documents coming from the current site or whatever, and there's also a tiled view for that one. And we've also got, if we were looking at tasks again, we've got the calendar view, and this is a brand new calendar view that we can work with. So if I go through and select that, It's a lot more modern than what you would be used to in either the web part or the add-in. So here we've got the same sort of thing. We've got a month view, day, week, and so on that we can go through and display our tasks. And they can also have conditional formatting set on them as well, and that can be configured through the UI. Okay, so that's multiple views created of our content very, very quickly. So let me just go through and delete a couple of these, and what we'll do is have a look at the advanced configuration. So the advanced configuration is, if you have used the Lightning Conductor before, it'll be something that you're perhaps quite familiar with. So when we click onto the plus icon again, we get our new view. We can click onto the cog, and we can go into this advanced mode. So we don't want everything to be configured for us. We want to be selective on what we're going to see. So there's 4 tabs down the left-hand side, and we can first of all choose the rollup provider that we want to use. So you can use either the object model or the search, and that will have a that will vary what this data source tab does. So when I go to the data source tab and I'm using the object model, notice how I can actually go through and select the sites or the site collections or the lists that I want to aggregate. If I was to choose the search rollup provider and go to the data source tab, then we're building in a search query in order to aggregate the results, rather than just basically going through and selecting the content that we wish to see. So again, if you have used the add-in, you'll know that the object model rollup provider was limited to just the current site collection, and that's not the case anymore with the SharePoint Framework version. Then we've got the display provider. So we can choose either the grid view, which is basically meaning you're going to go and select the columns that you want to display and how you want to group by them and so on. Or you can also use the JSON view or XSLT view. And these two have those styles built in, like the calendar view and also the tile view for the document library. We've also got a timeline view for tasks and so on that you can also use. So using the object model and the grid view, we'll just leave it like that. We'll jump into the data source tab, and we always have the current site or site collection at the top, so that's going to be in bold. But notice the different scopes here, so we can aggregate from the entire tenant or the current site collection, the current site and associated sites, and so on. So if we were choosing multiple site collections, it's just a case of going through and selecting which site collections we want to include. Or we can choose, like I say, just the current site, or we can be selective on each individual list, and so on. So I'll choose the current site and associated sites again. We can then choose the type of list. So here's all the different list types that you can choose from. Notice these are checkboxes. So if there's 2 lists that are similar, such as project tasks and tasks, we can actually bring content from both of those list types into one view. And also we've got the ability to refine by content type as well, which is something that we can do there. There's item limits and so on, so I can specify an item limit if I want to. We can also set a limit per list. So if we just wanted to bring like the top 5 items per list or something like that, we can do things such as that. And then we've also got grouping by folders or grouping by tasks. So if you've got tasks that are associated to other tasks, then we can keep them together inside one group. And then under the columns tab is where we basically go through and build our view. So in here we're effectively just selecting the columns that we want to see. So we can go down and choose each of those. So I'll just select a few, and we can, as we've always been able to do, drag and drop the columns in the order that we want those to appear in. So we've got the task name at the very top there. Now, one of the things we can also do here is add a calculated column. So in here we can have something such as a date range and specify the type of data. So if I set that to a double, we can then go through and work with the fields. from the list. So I can go through and select the due date and insert that, and deduct the start date, wherever that may appear. It's in there somewhere. There it is. So we'll select the start date, and I forget what the calculation is, but that's it's going to give me results in milliseconds. So I want to do the conversion to bring back those results in days. Okay, so that gives me a calculated column, which is now a separate column that I can select, and that will be displayed wherever I drop it inside my my view. I can just make sure that the start date is going to appear before that one. Okay, so you can also apply sorting. We can apply filters in the same way, and you can also, of course, edit the calculated columns all through that interface. And on the display tab is where we can go through and choose our data formatting. So here we can set the data formatting for each column here, so how we want that to be shown. And we can set column aliases and column widths. We can group by multiple columns. So if I wanted to group by more than one, we can basically go through and specify the primary, secondary grouping and so on. If we want to display the column or not, we can also apply the conditional formatting, which is what we've already seen here. And we've also got summary functions that we can build as well. So if we take my date range column as an example, one of the things I might want to do is group by the priority and then see how many days worth of work I've got for each priority, so I can see my high priority days and so on. So we'll do a sum here, and I'll just call that total days, which is just going to be a regular number, and I want to base it on each group. Okay, so we've got that, and then I'll just simply go through and group by the priority column. We've got some other features as well, such as sticky headers. So as you scroll up and scroll down, you'll always be able to see your headers. And we've also got dynamic filtering that you can turn on or turn off, changing all the column header alignment and things like that. How many items per page do you want to display, etc., etc. So we can go through and configure each element there. So when we hit save, that's the new view that we've basically created. So let's hit the drop down and select it, and there we go. So you've got the in fact, that probably needs to be published before you're going to see the calculated results. There's something a little bit wrong with my maths there, but even so, you can see we've got the calculated column, and we've also got a total for each group that we can display. Okay, so that's using the advanced view, the simple view, and like I say, we've also got some other types of view that you can create as we go through and add those. So when we select the edit web part property, we can also go through and do things like the document aggregation. So if we set that to be the current site and the associated sites in a grid view, we could go through and save that. And then we have a content aggregation for documents that was configured pretty quickly from a group of different sites there. Okay, so the other thing I want to show you is if you do currently use the Lightning Conductor, maybe you're using the Addin, then what you can do, if we just go through and add an empty instance of the web part again, so we'll go through and select the Lightning Conductor. And what we can do is actually import from the Addin. So I'm just going to open up in another tab here. an instance of the Lightning Conductor add-in. So as we go through and choose the Lightning Conductor add-in here. So with this one, this is just doing a very simple aggregation of the current site and tasks. But what you've got in the add-in is the ability to export the configuration data. So as I select the export configuration data there, it prompts me for exporting just the current view that I have selected, or do I want to export all of the views basically. So so I'll select just the current view. We'll choose OK, and that's going to go through, and we'll save that as something we'll easily be able to find. There we go. So that's now saved, and now we can go across to the Lightning Conductor SPFx client-side web part, and I can go through and import the configuration. Now there's two ways of importing the configuration. If I exported all of the views from the Lightning Conductor add-in, then you'll notice here that I can import all of the views from either another client-side web part or from the add-in, and this will display all of the views for me, or I can import just a single view, which is what I want to do because I just exported a single view. So here I'm going to click onto the import configuration, browse out to that file. So we'll have that on the desktop here. So we'll import that, and there's our aggregation as we left it in the add-in version. And again, of course, that can be customized further if you require it to be. Okay, so that's a quick tour of the Lightning Conductor, and we've got quite a few people on the call. So in a moment, I'm just going to open up and see if you have any questions. But also, I'll leave this slide up as well. So if you want to go ahead and try the Lightning Conductor for yourselves, then you can either download it. There's the URL there to go and download the web part, or you can also request a demo environment. So what we'll do is in our tenant, we'll just spin up a demonstration environment with some lists that you can aggregate content, and you can have a good play around with the tool without having to deploy this into your own SharePoint tenant. So I'll leave that slide up there, and whilst I do, I'll open up to any questions that you guys might have. Now, if you do have a question, what you can do is raise your hand in the GoToWebinar software, and I can then unmute you. So you should see the raise hand option. Okay, so seeing one or two pop up already. So we've got Tom Phillips. I'm going to unmute you, Tom. Hi, Tom. Yeah, hello, Tom. Possibly not got his microphone working, so I'll leave you for a moment, Tom, and raise your hand again if you're able to get that working. Okay, I'm not seeing any other raised hands at the moment. Oh, yeah, we do. So Joe, Joe, you have a question? Just check my volume. Yeah, my volume should be here. Okay, so let's try one more. James DeLisa. Hi, James, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Ah, great. Fantastic. Yep, so you have a question.
So my question, I do. So we use classic sites.
Yeah, okay.
So if I took and built a modern site, could I then roll up all the data from the classic sites for this data on the modern site?
Absolutely, yes. So in fact, you can actually add the Lightning Conductor onto a classic page as well if you wanted to. But yeah, you can aggregate any SharePoint list or library. It doesn't matter whether it's using modern lists or classic lists. Or whatever. So yeah, you can aggregate that content. But yeah, are you thinking more of a sort of almost as a migration type thing to get people used to using the modern sites? Is that the idea?
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to. That's probably going to be something we'll be looking at doing for Q1. We use the Lightning Conductor now. It's just we haven't updated to the newest version, so it's something that we're looking to explore, which is get moving on modern. And I can see this as a huge win for the way we do our project sites, because each project site has its own site collection, and we're getting close to 5,000 site collections right now. So not
Yep.
that some of those sites are closed, of course, but this would be for our active sites.
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, certainly you could use it for that purpose and bring that content into the modern sites.
Okay, awesome.
No problem. Thank you very much, James. Cheers. Okay, so Joe, let me try you one more time. Hi, Joe, can you hear me? Still unable to hear you, Joe. Sorry. Let me just see if anybody else has their hand raised. Okay, so we've got Valerie. So Valerie, I'm going to unmute you now. Hi, Valerie. Seems to be broken mic day. So yeah, just James has a working microphone today. Yeah, let me try one other user. So Yulia, can you hear me?
Hello,
Hi.
are you hear me? Thank you. Your presentation was awesome.
Oh,
I
thank you.
have two questions for you.
Okay.
First question is about sites, SharePoint sites that was made by Microsoft Teams. You know, this site hasn't classic hierarchy of sites. All sites of Microsoft is like individual site. Can we create some views that can concatenate dates from these Teams sites?
Yeah. Again, absolutely. So as you create a Teams within Microsoft Teams, you're absolutely right. That creates a SharePoint site. And that SharePoint site, of course, is where the content resides. So you get a document library, for example, with the general folder, which is full of documents and other lists that you may also create as well. So if you wanted to take some of that content that's being created in Microsoft Teams and maybe present that inside something like a communication site inside of SharePoint, then yes, that can be achieved. That's one of the advantages. And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So I should use search engine, yes, model object.
You could you could use search. You could also use the API and point directly at the site that gets created from Teams. So yeah, you've got both options there. And later on this year, we'll also have the support for Graph as well. So you'll be able to also access content from Teams via Graph, and that's going to put a different angle on it because you'll be able to bring back content that is of relevance, if that makes sense. So you could have your documents being returned because you connect with those people by email or what have you. Your Graph will recognize that you've got social interaction with other users, and therefore we could aggregate content on that basis.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is about how items I can aggregate I can get from Lightning Conductor. I remember that in previous version of Lightning Conductor online, I can get maybe 500 of items.
Okay, yes. So the 500 is a limit from the search rollup provider, because it's using search, and search has a maximum of 500 results. With the API, with the object model, you're not limited, but you can set a limit. So you could say, I want to just have a limit of 1,000 or 2,000. Or whatever you wanted to put into place, and that would, if you use the Addin version to bring back 2,000 items, you probably would have seen a performance issue with the Addin. That's why we would have recommended you go to search. We've tested the Lightning Conductor SPFx versus the Addin, and it's about 20 times faster using the SharePoint framework over the Addin model. You could try both the search and the object model in order to bring back those results.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, just checking to see if we have any more. No, I think that's it. So those of you who wanted to ask a question but couldn't, what I will suggest is you can drop me an email. So brett@lightningtools.com, and I'll be very happy to answer your questions there. So feel free to email me, and once again, that's Brett, BRETT @lightningtools.com, and any questions at all, I'll be able to address. Also, I want to point out that we've still got a couple of webinars to go in the webinar season. I know it's obviously Thanksgiving in the States, so you might have an issue attending this, but we do have a one on the SharePoint Framework Data Viewer tomorrow, and also another SharePoint Framework tool, which is our discussion forum product, Social Squared, and that will be on Thursday. Those sessions will be recorded, and we will be emailing out. So even if you can't attend or don't want to attend because you're eating turkey, feel free to register. And what we'll do is we'll just send out a link to the recorded video afterwards. But failing that, we'll also have another series of webinars coming up in the new year. So thank you very much, and those of you who have joined from the States, I wish you a very happy Thanksgiving, and everybody else, enjoy the cold weather here in Europe. Okay, many thanks. See you again.